Hello, hello.
Hello.
Well, welcome everyone. Happy Monday to you all.
Happy Monday.
I know it's another day, hey?
So
Another day, another week, which is good. I love a Monday. Monday is actually my favorite day. Oh no, lost my light. My daughter said to me recently, "Why do you love Monday, Mum, so much?" And I always think it's just full of opportunity and full of promise for the week. Fridays, I find I tend to be rushing through stuff very quickly to get it all done. Does anyone else love a Monday?
yeah, I've heard so much. Korean plan.
Yeah. Yep. Good, good. Excellent. Well, good to see some familiar faces. Good to see some new faces too. We've got a number of people registered for this, so I think people are just going to be coming in when they can. Jen's hot on the admit button. Jen's got us all sorted. Really, really great to see you all. So today we're spending some time focused on energy, and it's the energy equation in particular. We're looking at not a focus on burnout, but we are going to be touching on burnout, but really what creates this notion of strong, sustainable leadership and particularly deliberate leadership. And so I will go ahead and share my screen with you all so you can see what I can see. And as you're coming on in, a very warm welcome to you all. Please keep the chat on and going. I'm just going to move my chat window over here. There will be some times, particularly throughout today's session, where I do get you to pause and think about some questions. And so, to you, if you want to pop them into the chat, I would strongly encourage you to. Some I'll probably direct you more towards, could you pop that in the chat? Some will be reflection. So if you don't already have something to write with for this session, whether it's an electronic device or even taking notes on your phone or whatever, grab something at the ready because you will need something just to write with today. All
Mhm.
right. Again, a very warm welcome to you all. And people are coming in and they'll come in their time. Today's session is being recorded too, so we'll make sure we provide a copy of the master recording just in case you want to go back to it at any point, because we love to do that too. I think we pop it on YouTube, so feel free to share it around. But really good to see you and good to be here with you on a Monday. So as it says there today, we're focused on energy. And if you've ever done anything with me before, you'll know that I talk about energy a lot. I think it's one of those sustainable um, pillars of the way that not only the way that we lead, but the way that we are. And so, before we get into the session proper, I want to start with this little image. And this little image is an invitation to acknowledge country wherever you are. And so, I'm on Wurundjeri land. I want to pay my respects to um, the Wurundjeri Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and I extend that to wherever you might be today, your lands. This image is a beautiful image of the Yarra River, just a snapshot of the Yarra River here in Melbourne, Victoria, which is where I'm from. And when I think about leadership and leaders really bringing the right energy to the room, for me, there's a strong connection here to acknowledgement of country. Because when we're connecting with where we are, when we're connecting with our state, when we are really present, in our bodies and really here, then we can be much more custodians of our energy and really think intentionally and deliberately about the energy that we bring. So for me, this image and images like it, the environment that I surround myself in, the people that I choose to work with, the work that I agree to do is a big part for me of energy management. And so I am very, very aware that I'm in a grateful position, right? And I know many of us are, some of us are not. Some of us do not get that same level of choice around, the type of work that we do, who we work with. And the rest of it, right? So I'm very conscious that that is coming from a position of privilege, and I'm very, very grateful for that. But I think I am also a big fan of, control your controllables. And so whatever situation, right, we find ourselves in, I think that we can still be paying attention to energy management, right? And so I want to invite you today to connect in with this, as an image if that works for you, or you might want to, look out a window or do whatever you need to connect in with where you are from an acknowledgement of country perspective, but also just to connect in with your energy. All right. Um, So moving on from that beautiful image, what are we covering today? And again, welcome to you all. I'm not going to be able to say hello to all of you, but hello and good to be with familiar faces and good to recognize some familiar names too. It's great to have you here. We've literally just started, so you're not missing out on anything. I did put out an invitation just to connect in from an energetic perspective with where you are. It's not woo woo. It's just really a grounding piece to understand where we are, because energy, is a big part of leadership, and we have to really be conscious of managing our energy deliberately. So, what are we covering today? You've signed up for a masterclass on energy. If you're playing bingo, I'm going to say it about 76 times in the next 60 minutes, maybe 80, who knows? But we are talking about energy today and why it is real leadership challenge. And it is. So today's going to be a balance of bringing you some statistics and latest research in the areas of particularly energy, performance, and relationships. You're going to hear me talk about 3 real stories from 3 real leaders, and how just a tweak and a focus on energy, performance, relationships really changed the way that they led. And I'm going to invite you throughout the session to really be thinking about your energy equation. So there will be lots of prompt questions for you today. As I mentioned, for those of you that weren't on, you'll need something to jot down some notes today, and really to answer some questions, because I'm going to be posing lots of them at you. So I make no apology for that, other than you'll need something to write with. All right, we'll leave plenty of time too for Q&A. So let's start with this question. I'm just curious. It's Monday. Monday's my favorite day. I'm not sure if it's your favorite day or not. That's not the question. The question is, what's your energy rating today, just on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being, I'm really tired, I can't keep my eyes opened, to 10, I am busting with energy. It's Monday. I'm excited. What is it for you? Pop it in the chat, please. A number 1 to 10. Oh, we're starting off strong. Look at those 8s come out of the gate. I love it. Thank you, James. And thank you, Sarah. 7, 7, 8. Yeah, good. High energy group. Yeah. 5. Yep. I woke up a little tired. I never go out on a Sunday night, but last night I went to see a chef presentation, like a chef who did like this 1.5 hour keynote. Yeah, Yotam Ottolenghi. I'm not sure if did anyone go? Wave at me madly if you went. He's performing all around the country at the moment. I think he was in Bendigo, off to Hobart. Anyway, because I never go out on a Sunday night, and I was a little lower on my energy today, just full disclosure. So those of you that are at 5s, yeah, I probably was at 5 to 6 this morning. Feeling energized now, coffee helps. All right, so you can see there that we've got a range wherever you are. Let's not let that define where we are today, but it's good to know that that's our starting point. And I reckon that little check-in, just that little question, when you're feeling a bit, God, I can't be bothered. So just close your eyes or just look away from whatever you're doing and just go through it. So where is my energy at the moment? I reckon that question alone, we want some awareness around this, right? We want to know where we are. When we don't know where we are and we're not checking ourselves or checking in with ourselves, even with a simple question like that, we then don't know why we're irritated, who we are irritated with, whether we are hungry, whether we are bored, whether we are thirsty, whether we're tired. Like, we just don't know. There are so many variables that might be contributing to that feeling of, ugh, right? I don't even know why I'm feeling here, and I don't know what that feeling even is. So we're starting with that question today, but I would encourage you to ask yourself that question very regularly throughout the course of your day. Where's my energy at right now? Because when you can quantify it, even on that 1 crap 10 high, you are then going to be in a better position to work out what you need. And you will know what you need. Right. So today, if you're looking for strategies from me today on, increasing your energy and all that, there's some of that, but it's not our key focus, because I reckon you know that. You will know for yourself what's going to create energy for you, and it's going to be different for other people. So that's the first thing we want to do on a regular basis. Check in with yourself. Where is my energy right now? When we talk about energy at the Deliberate Leader, we don't talk about it on its own. We talk about it in the context of deliberate leadership, but it is one part of our equation and our philosophy around leadership. So you will see it right smack bang in the middle there, energy, but it doesn't happen on its own, because if our relationships are not quite right in terms of how we are building trust, how we are sustaining trust with our people, how we're connecting with them, our level of empathy, then that's not going to help our energy. That's going to create actually a drainer for our energy. And then if our performance and that of our team is not working quite right, that's also going to create a massive drain on energy. So when we talk about energy at the Deliberate Leader, we do focus on these three key aspects, which is part of our equation. So
Sounds not
I'm gonna mute if you are not muted. Beautiful. If you're not muted, then go ahead and mute. But actually unmute if you want to say something, obviously, and contribute to our conversation. All right. So that's our frame for today, a little sneak peek at our equation. So when we're talking about energy, I reckon that we need to start with little snapshots. And when I was putting this together, I felt like I was putting together little snapshots and almost vignettes of what can occur and what can impact our energy through the course of a day. And what can impact it, and what leaders commonly tell me, is that we've got cognitive overload. So we are dealing with so much thick and fast. Not only do we probably have like 3 or 4 screens in front of us, and that's not including mobile phones and iPads and whatever you're recording notes and things on, but it's also, people asking us questions and emails that we know that we need to respond to and things that we know that we need to do. And that is creating this drain, right, on us. So this cognitive overload, as you see there depicted in the top left. Then the other thing is this emotional labor, right? So if we're thinking about the person who looks like they're cracking it with someone who's probably cut them off, maybe at an intersection or something, I don't know. But we know that when we're experiencing this cognitive overload and when our energy is depleted, we're not going to always react. We're not going to be responsible. Actually, responsible is not right. We're always not going to be aware of the way that we are responding to something emotionally. So we might, kind of have an overreaction perhaps. Maybe that reaction is not an overreaction. Maybe it's warranted. But maybe we didn't need to go and abuse the other driver, right? Because we don't know what's going on for them. And yes, they may have cut us off or done something to annoy us. But when this cognitive overload occurs and when our energy is not right, we've got this notion too of this emotional labor and everything else that we are dealing with. And it's often about not being able to regulate really what's going on for us. The person that you see in the bottom left is this, experiencing constant task switching, maybe, or maybe they just like to look at a lot of screens. I would go bananas if I was in a room that was dark on top of that with all those screens. But we know this constant context switching is not doing our brains any favor. And the data tells us that it actually can impact productivity by as much as 40%. Right. So we know that there have been studies that have been done that when we context switch from one task to another, we lose time. So even though we're like, oh, I'll get to this and I'll just jump on this and then I'll get to that, our brain experiences a slowdown as you are context switching. So you cannot possibly go from, say, 90 to 100% kind of cognitive focus on a task into the same amount into another task. It's impossible, right? So you will experience a lag. It's kind of like when you go to a new, what you want your computer to go to a new website. It's just like it makes you hold. It's annoying, right? Your brain's doing that. You're not even aware of it. You think you're being a superstar moving from thing to thing, but you're actually creating quite a burden on your brain and it's depleting energy. And then we've got, this poor person who's had way too much coffee today, right? But that's just, when we're in that zone, it's burnout. But what this person has probably not done so well is really be mindful of recovery. So we cannot possibly be, I think I've got another image here. No. We cannot possibly be going from energy drinks and multiple coffees and a little bit of a dopamine hit, because sometimes if we scroll, we're just like, oh, I just need to like switch off. So I'm just going to go and scroll, right? Whatever your doom scrolling platform is. But that's what we're doing to prop ourselves up. And all these things that we think are actually replenishing our energy are actually creating energy drainers for us, right? So, and I'm not here to name and shame because, I drink coffee. A coffee is actually statistically proven to do some great things for us, but it is all within moderation. We've got to, again, what's going to work for me is not going to work for you. If energy drinks are your thing, great, go for it. But we know that, and even scrolling, right? You might feel very energized after scrolling. There's good research as to why that occurs. It's like dopamine hits that our brain's getting while it does it. It's very, very short-lived. So we want to be aware that because our brain is dealing with cognitive overload, this emotional labor or risk of dysregulation, if you like, our constant context switching and our lack of recovery, we can prop ourselves up with some stuff that'll make us feel better in the short term, but it's not going to work in the long term. And really, what we've got to be thinking about is some good strategies, particularly in the game of leadership, that are going to mean that we can create a real energy, not an artificial one, right? And with that real energy comes that sustainable approach, and that's what we want to get to today. All right. So when we think about energy, unfortunately, and this is really recent data, all the data that I'm showing you is less than 5 years old. So there's good data that we can become informed when it's older than 5 years old. But I like to use some recent stuff for you. So Gallup, if you don't jump onto Gallup regularly, jump on. Right, they've got some fantastic reporting for leaders. The state of workplace play, which they publish every year. But this particular study that they published in 23, that's now going on to 3 years. They found at the time that nearly half of the workforce was operating in an energy depleted mode. Now, when I look at data specifically for leaders, we're not immune to it, right? We're also energy depleted. But the thing with leaders is that more and more leaders these days are leaving leadership than ever before. So 1 in 5 leaders, based on other data, was not published by Gallup, but what they tell us that 1 in 5 is looking to leave leadership. Now, I'm assuming that most of you are leaders or aspiring to leadership or leading teams at the moment. And we will all have days where we go, why am I doing this? It's exhausting, right? But when you think that 1 in 5 leaders, so about 20% of leaders at any one time want to leave the role of leadership, which is scary. If you're responsible for managing succession pipelines in your business, you're probably going, oh my gosh, if 20% of my leaders left, what would I do? Yeah, that's a problem. But about 50% of your workforce at any one time is probably operating in this energy depletion mode. That is scary because we might not be operating heavy machinery or driving trucks, but there are other things, right, that require us to have that full attention and energy. And if you think about the constant level of transformation and change, and even just responsiveness that's required by your teams and by your leaders, if you are leading leaders, how can we possibly be turning up, kind of, turned on, lit up by our work when we're feeling so energy depleted? All right, so that's pretty scary. Emotional exhaustion directly impacts our attendance and our presence. Now, presenteeism, that's not a new thing. We've talked about it forever. In this study here, which was through the Journal of Occupational Health, they found that you get an effect of 2 to 5 times higher absenteeism and presenteeism when people have this sense of emotional exhaustion. So emotional exhaustion, we might turn up. The lights might be on, but that saying, lights are on, nobody's home, right? So this is what's happening. These leaders are turning up, and on the surface, maybe it looks like it's all going well, but they are not. Effectively, they are not there, and that is going to impact their ability to do what they need to do. And then burnout, right? So I'm not going to talk about burnout extensively because there are colleagues of mine that specialize in this area. But what I do know about burnout is not only is it accelerating turnover risk, but it's creating huge cost in organizations. Unfortunately, there was a coaching program that I was to begin with a new client only recently. She left her organization in January due to burnout. Now she's got some pretty serious recovery in front of her. She's been hospitalized. It's serious. We don't come across those kinds of cases, thankfully, all the time. But burnout is not just I'm having a bad day or I'm having a bad week. This is sustainable, a sustainable depletion of energy where you become pretty much non-functional in all aspects of your life, leading to sometimes, as bad as hospitalization. Here, though, when we talk about it from an energy perspective, and you may or may not be interested in this, but it means people are going to leave. So this study from Deloitte found that people are 2.6 times more likely to be looking for another job when they're feeling that they're burnt out. Now, in not all industries will it be easy to go and get another job. So as if you're an employer or you're a leader of leaders, you're like, well, it's not going to be easy to get another job, but that doesn't put you in a prime position just because you can hold on to them, right? You want to be able to create that environment where they don't want to look for another job because they are feeling energized by the work that they are doing. So we know that that there's some pretty serious impact when we're not focused in on energy. We talked about these energy proppers before, and sometimes I talk about energy drainers and energy zappers. Again, this is not to name and shame whatever practice floats your boat in terms of making you feel energized, but it's probably not going to lead to sustainable energy. So what I want to do is I'm talking to you about energy performance relationships today. I want to introduce you to some leaders. Now, this person is, Ken is not the person's real name. And this is not a real picture of Ken because, of course, that would be a breach of confidence, right? And I'm not here to do that to anybody, but it is a real story that I want to share with you. So Ken was one of our clients that we had to work with. Ken had, he didn't realize it was an energy problem, and nor did I at the start. But Ken was a leader that had been leading in a large organization for about 18 months in that particular role. It was a step up into a next level of leadership for Ken. Ken was really quite an introverted leader. And as he went into this role with lots of people for big team and big organization, he'd worked in a big organization before, but not this level of leadership. He was pretty overwhelmed to begin with, but he was also very apprehensive and fearful because he was such an introvert, right? And that was not a deal breaker whatsoever because we could work on that with Ken. We could work on helping him to develop some strategies that meant he could turn up in a way which was authentic, because we know you don't need to be a raving extrovert to be an effective leader. But what Ken didn't know at the time was that he was feeling quite tired. He was starting to withdraw from activity, not so much at work. So at work, Ken was turning up and doing all the things that he needed to do to be there for his team. He was a responsive leader. He was available. He was a learner, and everybody around him could see that. But what was happening was he was starting to spend more and more time at work. So his day, which, kind of went from about 8 till 6 on any given day, was starting to extend to, I'm going to get in earlier because he just needed that quiet time. So he's getting in at 6:30 in the morning. And then he was choosing to not go home early either. So he was feeling physically exhausted, but the biggest impact for Ken was actually on family life. So a couple of kids, a partner at home. Ken was walking in. So imagine leaving 6:30 in the morning, then not getting back until 8:30 at night. He was in tears telling me this. And the reason was he loved his family. He wasn't trying to avoid his family, but he knew that if he got home at 6, then he'd have to deal with all the stuff at home. And if you're a parent, you'll know what that's like, right? It's that afternoon shift where you got to get the meal done, got to get the extracurricular activities done, got to keep on top of who's doing what, who's going where, etc. So he was starting to just retract from all of that. So it nearly cost him his relationship, not only his main relationship with his partner, but also that with his children. And with Ken, we really needed to focus on principles to help him become energized in a way which was authentic for him, right? He was very highly introverted, didn't really have a good sense of how to manage his energy. So with him, we got him moving, and that was something that he did with his trainer too, his actual personal trainer. But we put some time, for him to do that. So building his physical and mental momentum through action was a big thing for Ken. So even if he was getting in earlier, it was around, well, get in and go for a run, or get in and use the gym at work, or get in and do something, or go for a swim, whatever it was going to help him feel more energized. We needed to connect his daily sense of work to his sense of purpose. So that inspiration, like when we know why we're getting up to do what we do, that makes our day a lot more exciting, and it means that we're connecting. And that is a big energy lever when we can connect what we're doing every day to purpose. We looked at also some different things for Ken around, how he was protecting his own sense of well-being, and then also disconnecting, right? So not disconnecting from people, but disconnecting to the work. So we had adopted what we called the mind principle here, but for Ken, we really needed to focus on his energy. And 6 months later, his biggest risk was his relationship, which it's still going strong today, thankfully, and touch wood for Ken. Not only his marriage, but his relationship with his kids. He's happier. Like he's turning up at work happier. He's still in the big job. He's still highly introverted, but he's got a greater sense of who he is and what he needs to develop his energy. So that's Ken. All right. So now it's time for you, please, to bring out your writing instrument, whatever you've got to write with. And I've got some questions for you, if that's okay. And my first question is, what gives you energy at work? And if you like, feel free to pop it in the chat. You don't have to, though. You could just jot a few things down. Shan, that's very exciting. He was good. I wonder if he came to Canberra. He probably, because he did the rounds. I'm back on Yosha Malchalengi and distracting you all from what you need to do. What gives you energy at work? All right. Next question. What drains you? So we've looked at what gives you that energy at work, but what drains you at work? Interactions. Yeah. Is it any particular type of interaction? I'm sorry.
I guess sorry, that was me.
Yeah.
I guess oftentimes, and I'm not a people leader, but aspiring to become one. But in my capacity as a HR business partner, I support and work with a lot of people leaders. And from what I'm hearing, at least since late last year, is that they're investing a lot of time in just interacting and hearing problems of their staff members. So that can become quite overwhelming for the supervisor, even though there may not be necessarily negative interactions, but just kind of complaining of, I've had a big day, or, get me out of here. Like it's pretty draining for me. So just being on the other side and listening constantly about the workload and the stresses that could have an impact, even though you are not the one who is directly impacted by the workload, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So just having to listen to people's stuff. Yeah, I get it completely. Savan, you've said nothing, and we're all going, we're envious of that position of nothing. Would you mind, Savan, I know some of your team are here today too, and they're going to be very, very curious. Tell us a little bit more. How do you achieve that sense of nothing drains me? I love that.
I don't know. I just don't. I feel like I have a real purpose and drive for why I do what I do. I love accounting. We're an accounting firm, and I love helping clients. So generally, nothing really drains me. The only thing that probably drains me is an overworked calendar. So I'll go home and go, oh, I'm tired today. I don't feel like during the moment that I'm feeling drained or overworked or tired or anything like that. But when I get home, the battery is pretty low. So then I feel drained then. Um, Maybe I'd say negativity would drain me. People that go, oh, we can't do that, or we can't solve that problem. It's unsolvable. So I'm like, no, we like those kinds of negativity or negative energy generally drains me, but it's more disappointment than draining energy than anything else. So yeah, that's for me. But yeah, I have my moments. Don't get me wrong. I would say my energy gets drained more if my family life isn't going well. So if we've had a bad morning getting to school, or the kids aren't happy, or there's stuff at home that's going on, I will struggle to bring energy into the office. But there's nothing that the office or the people inside of the organization does to drain my energy. It's usually, yeah, that other stuff.
Beautiful. See, we did get something there that drains Savan energy. So that's yes, we've all got those things, right? Thank you, Savan, too, for sharing that. And I think those things that are happening, sometimes they're within our control and they're not. What I love though, when we're in that position of leadership, so energy is contagious. Now, when you are in the position of a leader, if you are having a good day or if you're having a bad day, you will probably not even need to open your mouth. Your team will pick up, like their super sixth sense, kind of feeling will pick it up, and you don't even have to say anything. So it could be that you don't have to say, I had a really sleepless night because my 8-month-year-old, I don't have one of those anymore, but my 8-month-old didn't sleep, or I'm really stressed because I'm having to put a parent, into aged care, or whatever's going on, right? You won't even have to say that to your team. Your energy is like a beacon, and it will radiate. Now, I've had coaches in the past say to me, well, you've got to keep a lid on all that. So when my kids were really little and it was quite stressful balancing a senior leadership role and family life, I had very well-meaning coaches that said to me, well, you've just got to keep all that under control. Go get another nanny or whatever it was, that was their well-meaning strategy. What actually supported me through that is bringing some level of vulnerability that I was comfortable to bring in to work with my team. Now, that doesn't mean you need to go hard on the sleeve. I'm going to become a massive oversharer and share everything that's going on. What it does mean is that you're being authentic. You are letting your team know where you're at. And just like we started off with that question, where's your energy? I think people then know how to respond and deal with us when they've got a sense of where our energy is at. Because you may not share stuff with your team, but then you may have a very abrupt conversation with one of them. You may not be as patient as what you normally are. You might be asking a few more pointed questions than what you normally do. And if your team don't know where that's coming from, they're going to go, whoa, what's going on today with Rita, right? Or whoever. So it's good. I'm not suggesting you be an oversharer, but if people can get a sense of where we're at energetically, that helps them to help us. So anyway, there's going to be stuff that drains all of us. And I think knowing what that is and connecting in with it can help us then work out what strategy we need for it. All right. I reckon I've got one more question for you here. So back on energy. So we looked at what drains it, what creates it for us. Now, finally, where are you leaking energy unnecessarily? So for those of you, particularly if you said, back-to-back meetings, workload, excessive email, even the interactions that we talked about, family stuff, is there any of those areas where you think, well, yeah, I am leaking energy there. That's creating a bit of a drain, and it's probably unnecessary because ... Maybe it's something that can't be controlled for right now. Maybe I'm leaking energy unnecessarily because I keep continuing with a practice that no longer serves me, like going to bed too late and still expecting to get up early and do stuff. Sometimes it's really hard to find that leak. So, like if you've had a leak at home, and I'm talking about a plumbing leak, it's really hard sometimes to find the source of that leak. So we know that there's a problem. We know that we're leaking energy, but from where? I have a lot of clients say to me, but Rita, I'm exercising and I'm eating well and I'm sleeping and I still feel like crap. It's like we've got to go back to the drawing board and just really have a look at. It's like we did with Ken. With Ken, we had to look at his life holistically, our schedule, relationships, the types of people that were draining his energy, which were those kind of very bouncy, extroverted, energetic people, which weren't going to work very well with Ken. It was actually making him feel quite inferior and like, oh, why aren't I like that? Isn't that what I'm supposed to be? Yeah, aspiring for perfection in everything. Yeah. All right. So we've had a look at 3 questions there in relation to energy. So now we're going to continue to focus on energy, but we're going to make a slight little detour and now into performance. So I love talking about performance because I love high performance. I love that whole notion of drive and ambition and goal setting. It's not everybody's thing. But when we're working in teams and when we're working in businesses, whether you call it performance, KPIs, goals, targets, whatever, there's going to be an element of you needing to perform in your role and you needing to get your team to perform. So when we slightly add on our energy, it also has an impact on how we perform. So this is another kind of frightening statistic. Only 23% of employees globally are engaged at work. So we looked before at presentees and, turning up and actually turning up ready to work. But only 23% are globally engaged. That's less than a third, which is pretty scary. Now, here's a kicker if you're a leader. you have a huge amount of power and will and pull in terms of varying your team's engagement. So when your energy is depleted and drained and you are not turning up kind of energized in whatever form that means for you, not Energizer Bunny for everybody, but you're going to impact your team's engagement. So this is where I was talking to you about that kind of the beacon effect of your energy being contagious. It will have a direct correlation on your team's level of engagement. We know that when leaders are not energized and when their performance is also out, our decision quality is absolutely impacted. So it impacts our ability to think strategically and really be ready for that horizon thinking, which my 11-year-old calls, he loves using the term big brain. So when he does something hard, he goes, "Mum, I use my big brain," right? Yeah, I'm like, that's awesome. This is big brain thinking, right? So to do that strategic thinking, to really be able to plan and have the foresight and innovate requires us to really be thinking about our energy because it impacts it. Our working memory is impacted. And this is that context switching that I talked about before. When we're trying to do too many things, that's going to impact our working memory. And also our judgment accuracy, which is pretty scary when you are, we've got lots of accountants on this call. We're making decisions, financial decisions based on clients. When we've got a lot of education clients on this call and those of you that work in education, but when we're training others and that next level, next generation of whatever profession you train in and you educate in, you want your judgment to be right. I do a lot of work in the health sector. I want those clinicians, surgeons, doctors, nurses to be 100% spot on in terms of their judgment. So it impacts all that. The other thing I'll just say under working memory, so a colleague of mine who does quite a lot of work in that neuroscience, but she presented some data the other day to me and a bunch of other people about the fact that our over-reliance on AI is shrinking our brains. So if you are interested in that area of dementia, Alzheimer's, what's happening to our brains with AI, it's shrinking it. And what her message to all of us was, do things that make your brain hurt on a daily basis. And I'm not just talking about Wordle and Sudoku, right? Like that's fun, but that's 3 minutes. I'm talking about really getting into critical analysis and data and really poring over that and not necessarily defaulting to AI to help us with that. Because that is going to impact also, our performance, but our energy, because we're not exercising our brains as we should. And then finally, there, as it says, focus as a leadership capability. So I absolutely feel this. I'm sure you all do. But our meetings have tripled since 2020. Our number of meetings have tripled. And I go, why? When we've got such great tech and all that kind of stuff. And the reason for that, very simply, is that tech's not going to help reduce the number of meetings. It's probably our system design and thinking in organizations. And if we don't get that right, that is going to impact how many meetings we need to have, who we need to consult with, delegations of authority, who has decision-making ability, how we are consulting in organizations. So if we're all tired, you're probably spending too much time in meetings. That's a fun exercise to do, by the way. If you just get your calendar out over a week and you actually color code your different types of meetings, that could be very telling in terms of, the types of meetings, who are you meeting with, and whether they are, in fact, necessary or not. But our focus time has dropped sharply. And this was a statistic from Microsoft in a piece that they do called Work Trend. So even though we have the ability to kind of be more present, we're not focusing necessarily on the right things. And maybe that always on, I'm always available. Can't even go on leave without saying, but if it's urgent, contact me on WhatsApp or whatever. Like that feeling of being always on does not create a shutdown, which we need, for that energy. But that's absolutely leading to problems there, execution fatigue, as it says, and poor prioritization. So I want to talk to you now about Katrina. So Katrina was another one of our clients, and Katrina was absolutely performance driven. Really a go-getter, like one of those people that you want on your team because they could take a plan, they could create the plan, take the plan, execute effectively, on every single succession chart in that organization. But the problem with Katrina was that she was burning her team pretty quickly, right? So what she had not done was be able to connect her team up with purpose. So we heard about that before. I think, Savan, you mentioned it. When we don't have that alignment to purpose, that becomes exhausting. There's nothing exhilarating about that. Katrina was exhilarated, but she hadn't been able to connect that in for her team. So they were all feeling pretty tired. They felt like they were working for a micromanager. In fact, one of them called her a tyrant, which was not a nice term at all. Very much his command and control type of leader. So for Katrina, we didn't want to, it wouldn't have worked for us to say, we'll just double down your ambition, thanks, because nobody's interested in it. That was what drove her. And that is what had made her successful up until that point. But we needed her to be able to infuse that into her team in a way that made sense for them, right? In a way that was going to light them up in terms of that language. So we got her focused through this focus principle. So she was able to frame these goals and expectations in a way that the team understood, because they understood then why it mattered for them, not just for Katrina and her KPIs. They were able to then take responsibility for progress and outcomes. They felt that they had more ownership in it. It wasn't just Katrina's agenda. The challenge was achievable. So this is, a challenge is great, but if we're setting challenges and targets that feel like they're out of reach, some people will rise to that, but some will just go, nah, right? And they'll just drop almost into apathy. So she had to encourage a way for the team to, meet their risk appetite, but also set these achievable goals. She did need to upskill. And this was probably the hardest thing for her, because then it wasn't all about what Katrina could do. Part of her job then as a leader was, well, what am I doing to build the talent in my team? How am I tuning into what they need? And it wasn't just upskilling Katrina, it was also upskilling the team. And she needed just to make it more digestible for everybody, right, through this simplification. So priorities needed to be really clear, basic, well understood. And once we meet that, then we move on to the next thing. Once we meet that, then we move on to the next thing. So from that work, she was able to turn around the team's performance. What was the biggest win for Katrina was the feeling that her team had towards her. So you remember just earlier on in the previous slide, I shared with you that statistic on team engagement, and that leaders are often the key variance in what creates higher engagement or lower engagement. So for Katrina, that's what we saw move in her employee engagement survey for her particular division. And that was a big win for her, because not only it was humbling, right? Not only was she working on her meeting her KPIs and her being the star performer, which she was then also being judged on the performance of her team, but also how engaged her team were. So through that focus on performance, we were able to turn that around for her, which was good. She's still in that role, which is great. All right. So now some questions for you, right? Focused on performance. So what are the 3 things that you do that make a real difference in your role? And I am thinking about performance here. So what are the 3 things that you think, I must do those things? They are critical things that actually move the dial in the performance of the team. What are they for you? And if you're finding this question hard or confronting, it is, because I have purposely bounded it with asking for 3 things. But here is where we start to sift. So imagine you've got a sifter and you're just letting those 3 key things that are must do's for you and your team from a performance perspective. What are they? And everything else kind of just goes. It's not that those other things are not important, but they're not going to be as critically important as those 3 things that really move the needle.
You're looking for specific roles that we play within the organization, and what are the main things we need to execute for performance? Is that what you mean?
It could be roles, probably, it's probably more. So if one of the key things that you do is that you offer a 30-minute one-on-one for all of your team members every week, and even though that is time consuming, it is critical because it helps you connect it with them. That's those kinds of things.
So yeah, I would say for me that's what I was kind of, what are the 3 things that you need to do make a real difference? It's coaching and setting expectations. So it's being clear in the expectations that you want from your team, but then it's also coaching them. Those one-on-ones, we have a mentor program, mentor meetings, the 3-minute conversation at the water cooler. They're the things that probably make a real difference. And any interaction with I think you have with your team is an ability to educate, teach, guide, mentor, support. So I think from our perspective, an accounting firm that's professional based, educating, teaching, inspiring, leading, supporting is probably the most critical thing for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Agree, Simon, because it is that kind, not only that kind of business, but you've nailed it there around it's what is fundamental in your role. But often these things that you might have come up with, these 3 things, they're often the things that we let go of because of time, because we've got my dog is being very rude. Because we've got all those operational requirements that mean that we can sometimes let those things go.
Yeah, well, the other thing for me is driving growth. So going out there, networking, seeing clients, and interacting with clients more regularly than I should. I probably do the bare minimum. So your comment on what's being let go is that for me at the moment. So we're getting so bogged down with so many different things going on that it's that's being put to
Yeah.
that
And
priority.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And it's probably an opportunity to go, well, is that still going to serve me? Or is that going to be the thing that I actually need to create more energy and more time for? Yeah. Okay. And then finally, and this is, so I've talked about all those things that are sifting through. Where is your energy currently going instead? So if it's not going on these 3 things that you're like, oh, I need to focus on these 3 things, then what else is it going on? I know for me, I get a real dopamine hit and kick. So Jay knows this. So we use Asana in our team as our workflow system, and the team are going to go, no, I don't spend enough time in Asana. I should, but Asana is our workflow. So when we do something, we can tick it off and go, I've done it, I've done it, I've done it. That makes me feel great. If you've worked with me before, I might have shared with you. I'm looking for my notebook. The other day, I did something that was not on the task list. And so I went to cross it off and I'm like, oh, I hadn't even written it down. So then I wrote it down post having completed the task to then just have the satisfaction and the dopamine hit of being able to cross it off. Yeah. Isn't it good? And it is wacky, right? It's wacky because I'm like, oh, gee, I'm just playing a game. Like, I'm not even playing a game. I just want the dopamine hit. Yeah, I'm glad, Adam, that resonates for you too. Does anyone else do that? It is so good. And you know that you have fooled yourself. But it's just such a good feeling. It's like, damn, I did it and I'm giving myself a prize by taking my pen and just crossing it off the list, right? Where is your energy going instead? Yeah, exactly. There is this beautiful flying horse. Looks like a unicorn, doesn't it, Jay? And Asana has a way of just rewarding you when the job is done. Yeah, exactly right. All right. So we've got a sense there of, so if we're not spending enough time and energy on those things that are going to be the game changers, really, um, where's our energy going? And so maybe you've identified there's some more leaks or some things that you're like, I do that stuff because it lights me up. Is it the game changer stuff? No. If I'm going to spend less time on that, who's going to do that other stuff? So this is kind of the conversation's probably going to be going on in your head right now. All right. Now, we're going to move on to now relationships. And so far we've met Ken and Katrina. We're going to meet Violette in a moment with relationships. But I mentioned to you before that energy is contagious. And when our relationships are not right, it absolutely impacts our performance, but it impacts energy and performance too. So we know that in organizations where there's high trust, and we do a lot of work around the area of trust because it, whether you like this term or not, it is the lubricant in a team, right? If you do not have trust, you're not going to be able to get anything done and nothing will be smooth as it should because you'll experience bumps and misalignment on agendas and miscommunication and people really being weary of other people's intent when you don't have that trust right. So we know in organizations, and this is Australian data, so from ARI only a couple of years ago, but high trust organizations get 76% more employee engagement, which is a good thing. We want our employees to be engaged. 40% less burnout, which is huge. And if you are responsible for work cover premiums in your organization, that will be music to your ears, because that's where our work cover premium costs are going in that burnout stress. But we need it, right? There is trust is more than a nice to have. There is performance value in having that trust and high relational trust. There's another study there, and this was a journal article from those three authors there. But studies demonstrate that leaders' communication, teamwork behaviours have a significant positive impact on trust. So when our communication is right, when our intention is right, when all our workplace behaviours that we know, when that's all right, that has a significant amount of pull on that trust and whether we're building that trust or not. And then finally, vulnerability in trust, because if we want trust, we've got to be prepared to demonstrate some vulnerability, and we're letting people know where we're really coming from, because that builds trust. It's like when someone goes, "How you going?" and you're like, "Good," and you can see that there's nothing good about what's going on with them. So we know that employees are 5.3 times, very precise, more likely to trust leaders who show vulnerability, and 7.5 times more likely to sustain that trust when they acknowledge imperfection. So things that didn't go well, either performance related or, I've got an issue because whatever's happening with my teenage kids or my partner or whatever. And again, we don't necessarily want, groups of oversharers. You're going to share within your realm of what's appropriate and not. But it has an impact. So when we're focusing on relationships and we're focusing on them particularly through this lens of trust, it impacts organizational performance. Here's Violette. Here's the last leader that you're meeting today. Violette was a really interesting character. So she was very high energy, had come into this organization from another organization where she was star performer. She had been poached, right, from that organization that she was in to the one that she went into, which is when I was working with her. Violette had a very inflated sense of her abilities and ego, really. And because she was poached, she felt that she was coming in to rescue that new organization. And so you can imagine, and she landed with that air about her. So you can imagine when she went in, people were like, "What? Like, seriously? Like, who do you think you are? We don't need rescuing. We're fine, thanks. You're not the gun for hire that you think you are, That set her up from the start for not such a good place. Now, the other two stories end well. Violette's does not, because she ultimately left the organization, but she left with a whole heap of self-awareness that she did not otherwise have about, building relationships. Because she came in as this kind of gun for hire, I'm the hero of this story. I don't need to really build relationships with you because you are all substandard and I'm going to come in and tell you how to do your job properly. It was doomed from the start. But she did learn a pretty important and difficult lesson. And that is that, that didn't help her win any friends. It didn't help her influence in the organization. It didn't help her achieve. She actually ended up damaging her own brand and reputation because of that sense of herself, really, that she walked in with. When we were working with Violette, one of the things that really helped her build her self-awareness was our trust principle. So she knew that she had to be transparent with her agenda. She wasn't always so. But that was also willingness to take on other people's views and feedback. She didn't demonstrate a lot of respect, but she realized at the end that she needed to, and that's where she had damaged a lot of her brand and reputation. She knew that she had to seek to understand before going in to judge. And she didn't. She went in with a playbook that had worked for her in the past that was not going to work in this organization for different reasons, because she hadn't spent the time really seeking to understand what was going on. She didn't create safety. When you're coming in, you're telling everybody how crap, or you're not telling them, but you're giving that sense of you're all rubbish, you don't know what you're doing, I'm going to come in and save it. She created a lot of damage from a psychological safety perspective. And there was certainly not that sense of we're in this together. So I would have loved to have given you a "this has all ended beautiful" story, but it's not always the way it goes, right? One thing, and I'm still in contact with Violette, she's moved into another organization. She's absolutely conscious of not making those same errors again. I think she's really had to look at, what the damage that was done from a brand and reputation perspective, and have a think about how she now approaches her next team. But it has not been an easy ride for her. So she really needed to focus on those relationships, and had she, I think she wouldn't have burnt as many bridges and certainly been well liked and well received in her organization. So in your team, last set of questions, who's getting the best of you in your team? Is it everybody? Is it the people that you get along with? Maybe it's your bosses and your directors, whoever it is that you're reporting into, but who's getting the best of you in your team?
Can I ask, do you mean in a positive way or a negative way? Like who's getting the better of you or who's getting the best part of me?
No, the best of you. So not
Mm.
the better of you because they're taking advantage of you. Good, good
Yeah.
insight there, Sean. Yeah. 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 And if it is your bosses, then great. And are they, is there any way of you sharing that around with anybody else, right? If it is, because often it is our bosses, or in my case, clients, uh, my board directors on the different boards that I'm on, like, it's not always the people that you necessarily want. So who's getting the best of you? Next question, who gets what's left? If you've got certain people that are getting the best of you, then I guess the question here is who gets what's left and what do they get? What are they getting? Are they still getting that energy? Are they getting your presenteeism, your time, or are you using it for other stakeholders? I know I'm definitely guilty of this because Jay and I have a one-on-one straight after this, and I'm heads up, Jay. I'm probably going to text Jay and go, Jay, I'm hungry. I need to eat a sandwich before we get on our one-on-one. So we're not going to get full time, right? Or we'll make up the time. And it's certainly not a sense of getting what's left, but it's about kind of being real and going, if I don't eat now in a busy afternoon, when's that going to happen? Big part of our energy. But who does get what's left? And are we explaining what they're getting? And then finally, this is the final one. What conversation are you avoiding that's costing energy? So poor Jay, I'm going to put her on the spot. Sorry, Jay. But if I was deferring my meeting with Jay because I didn't want to talk to Jay and I was just saying, I'm just going to grab a sandwich, I'm hungry. Is that a conversation that I'm avoiding? And if I am, why? I'm not, Jay. It's all good. But if I was, what is that costing me? And it reminds me, back in for Violette, that character that we just saw, there were a lot of conversations that she probably could have had and repositioned in relation to her expectation of the team and what she needed from them. But that she didn't, that really then cost her a bunch in energy because then she had to kind of go, who's after me? Who's ready to stick something metaphorically in my back? So what's a conversation that you're avoiding that's costing you some energy? So we've now gone through energy, relationships, performance. You've met three real leaders. Their names and their pictures are not real, but their stories absolutely are. And we've had a look at, the intersections of energy, relationships, performance. And hopefully now you've got a sense of, we started today's conversation with energy, but energy is your catalyst, but it's absolutely going to impact what's happening in relationships and performance and your momentum, your sense of action, your mojo, how you're feeling, right? And your mindset. So I want to leave you with one thing that you might want to ponder. What's one shift that you can make for yourself this week in energy, one shift in performance, and one shift in relationships? What's one thing that you could do? You've already answered a bunch of questions, at least 9 on each of those. So I'm hoping you've got some food for thought around those. But just one little thing, could you journal for an extra 5 minutes? Could you make sure you're having your hydration, which is what I'm focused on, sleep, whatever it is? Is there a conversation that you could have? Is there a goal that you could clarify for someone in your team, right? So what is it for you? Why are we focusing on this? I just saw this recently and I really love it because once upon a time, it's from Gallup, but we used to be focused on paychecks, but now it's purpose. Once upon a time, we were focused on satisfaction. Now it's development. Once upon a time, we would see our leader as our boss, but they're now our coach. Annual reviews have gone from that to ongoing development conversations. We don't talk about weaknesses as much anymore and gaps. We talk about strengths and strength-based relationship. And because a job now is our life, it's our identity. For many of us, it is our life's work. When you are dedicating yourself to a profession, it is our life's work. It's more than just our job, right? So why do we focus on these big key things? Because it's a representation of our life, not just a job and certainly not just a paycheck. When we focus on energy, relationships, and performance, we talked about them as big buckets today. I wanted to give you a little sneak peek into our program. So when we run a deliberate leader program, these are the areas that we focus on under the categories or buckets, if you like, of energy, relationships, and performance. So you can see it's a very holistic approach. And our leaders absolutely build capability and confidence in these areas, but they are also building these real skills and practical skills that they can take into all aspects of their life and not just leadership. So I want to thank you. We're just on 1 o'clock. Thanks for your hour today. Feel free. I'm happy to hang for a little bit. Jane and I, in fact, will hang because we've got a one-on-one hour. Scan the QR code. That's going to take you through to our website where if you've enjoyed, content today, we can have a bit of a chat to see, what you're taking away from it, but also ways that we can make it meaningful in your organizations. So thanks, everyone. And I'm happy to hang for questions if you have any. Thanks for coming along and happy Monday and happy week to you all.
Thanks, Rita. I actually do have a question.
Sure.
As you can see, I'm from CQ, and this is the first time I've been to one of your sessions, so thank you so much.
Pleasure.
In the job that I'm doing in the strategic HR space at the moment, I'm doing like a project manager role looking at our employee experience. But, there's multiple projects on the go. So I'm working with all of those sponsors, the leadership sponsorship team, and I can see this energy is going to be conflicting when they're taking on such massive projects in tandem. And I'm just wondering, I've had to have one conversation with one of them around, can you actually commit to what's needed in terms of energy and that, that ongoing positivity to help bring about major changes in the organization. So I can see that this is going to become relevant to more of those sort of sponsors. I'm wondering if you've got any insights or tips around, how do you bring this up? How do you have these conversations? How do you bring awareness that they're going to need this ongoing energy to achieve these goals?
Yeah, I think so Karen, with the language of energy, some leaders really resonate with it and some don't. In a university environment, because I'm very familiar with the university environment, I wouldn't shy away from talking about it in terms of the energy, but I would also probably add in that element of aligned goals and performance. Because for a team like that, where you've got different sponsors with different projects, but they're all kind of culminating into whatever it is, more student numbers, student engagement, research outcomes, whatever it might be, they will all have their view on their portion of success. And it's almost like you've got to create that sense of where's the alignment. So that will require them all to step up from an energy perspective and even be aware of the different things are important to different stakeholders. But I would be focusing on that alignment and kind of getting that shared purpose, the shared what's in it for me and what's in it for us. And if you can create that thread, then my view, and I've seen this happen in teams, they all kind of lift because they've all got a little bit of skin in the game. And then they can all work on individually what we need to do. But in terms of that collective goal, then they're like, okay, now I know why I need to do this, because it's not just for me. And it's also not just for the collective. There's a reciprocal, I'm getting something out of it, but so is the organization. Does that help, Karen?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I can just see individuals taking on a lot of projects that are aligned, as you're saying, and just have to sort of bring, I guess, the awareness that this is going to require quite a big amount of effort. You can't take on project sponsorship just to be the face. There's a level of work and effort that's required that requires the energy. And yeah, I guess it's more about just making them aware, that there's a commitment required. And it's really hard to explain, but from that change perspective, definitely I'm doing that, what's in it for me from all those different perspectives. And I guess making sure that those sponsors, they don't need all the detail, but they do need to understand all of that underneath to help bring the project along and not get things confused when they're taking on too much because their focus isn't directed correctly, I guess.
Yeah. It's kind of like that. I've got to be a good individual. In order for me to be a good individual contributor, then I've got to get my house in order first, but then I've also got to contribute to that bigger piece. And I think for leaders, that's often they are straddling both. And my house in order is my personal level of energy, my performance, but then my teams, and then I've also got this executive sponsorship role, which is a much bigger part. And they all need to be sustained. Like the level of energy that you're bringing to all of that needs to be sustained because it's really easy to go, well, I've run out of steam there, like there on that bigger thing. I can't control a lot of stuff there, so I'm just going to focus back on me and my team, what I can control. But that means that ultimately you'll impact the ability to achieve that bigger project.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's probably what I was looking for. Just those words to bring awareness around it, and so that they've got all the information to make the decision. Yeah.
Yeah, but happy, if you wanted to, feel that's QR code will get you some time. If you wanted to just chat through, then by all means, let me know. I'd be happy to have a chat with you about that.
Perfect. Thanks so much for your time today.
Pleasure. Take care. See you later.